Good morning and good afternoon. Welcome to another episode of Before Coffee. It's our Friday news dump. So we're going to cover all sorts of different news stories before the weekend's out, or starts. Yeah. So let's go ahead and get into our headlines today on Before Coffee. England foreign officer warns football fans about German beer ahead of the Euro 2024.
Immigrants died doing a job that others don't want to do.
Whatever happened to the EU's plan to stop changing the clocks? That's what I'm asking, and so are the people here.
And will the feds ever cut interest rates again?
John Boyega tells a life-changing friendship with Damilola Taylor.
Those stories and more news dump on what is Friday, March 29, 2024 on National Pita Day on Before Coffee.
All right, National Pita Day it is, so get your pita bread out as we talk about European football, or soccer for the Americans out there. Everyone else calls it football. Well, England and Scotland, this is from The Independent by, did anybody write this article? Zoe Griffin. While England and Scotland football fans may well be experienced in drinking pints, the Foreign Office has urged them to be aware of their limits in Germany, as beer can be stronger than in the UK. The Euro 2024 will kick off in Germany in June, and it's estimated that between 55,000 to 80,000 English football fans will visit at least once during the tournament. In the UK, the average strength of a bottle of beer is 4.4% according to DrinkAware, whereas it's 5.4% in Germany. Now, remember guys, 1% doesn't seem like a lot, but it can actually be a lot. Some brands of beer have so much as 16% alcohol, which is the same potency as a bottle of wine. Drinking beer of that strength in pint glasses quantity can make football fans inebriated very quickly. As England, but everyone knows alcohol in sports is always a great combo. Hey, why are they fighting? I don't know. They're drunk. As England takes on Serbia on June 16th in Gleisenkirchen, the FCDO website is advising fans to drink responsibly and be mindful of local laws, as excessive drinking could lead to being barred from entering the stadium. The warning reads, beer can be stronger than in the UK, so drink responsibly. Know your limits and respect local laws. You may not be let in the stadium if you drink too much. It also advises fans only buy match tickets from official providers. Tickets will be electronic and you will need your mobile phone to validate them at entry. Make sure your phone is charged and take into account roaming charges in Germany. Check with your phone provider before you travel. Match tickets bought through unofficial means may not be valid. If you sell tickets through unofficial means, you could be prosecuted. While alcohol was banned at stadiums in 2022 World Cup in Qatar, it's not known whether or not England fans will be served at the Veltins Arena for the Serbia opener. Football fans in Germany are normally permitted to consume alcohol in their seats at the matches, but alcohol bans are not unprecedented for certain Bundesliga matches that are viewed as high risk. The beer Bitburger is one of the main sponsors of the Euro 2024, with pints served at most stadiums and in designated fan zones. So if you're planning on going, make sure you get those drinks at your designated fan zones and don't drink more than you... Come on. If you drink, you should know your limits. You should realize, hey, I'm getting a bit drunk. I should stop. But, if you're alcoholic, I guess you can't stop. If you're alcoholic, don't go to sports games and drink alcohol. But, hey, it's your life. There's your freaking warning about drinking.
Alcoholics tend not to be public drinkers anyway.
Yeah. That's my story.
That's the story. Okay, well, here's a story about immigrants and Reuters. And reminding us, hey, they're people. This is written by somebody I hope doesn't have it. Okay, no byline. This is Reuters. Okay. They came to, let me make this a reading pane so I don't have to scroll so much. They came to the United States for a chance for a better life. They found work filling potholes on a bridge in the middle of the night, and they ended up dead in the Baltimore harbor. 6 victims of the Francis Scott Key Bridge collapse were all immigrants from Mexico and Central America due to the kind of grueling work that many immigrants take on. When a container ship crashed into the support pillar at 1:30 a.m. Eastern Daylight Time on Tuesday and sent them plunging into the icy Patapsco River. Divers pulled the bodies of Alejandro Hernandez Fuentes and Darlian Castillo from a red pickup truck 25 feet underwater the following day. 4 are missing and presumed dead. Maynor Suazo from Honduras, Jose Lopez from Guatemala, Miguel Luna from El Salvador, and another whose name has not been released. Another 2 workers were rescued. The news rippled quickly through Baltimore's Hispanic community, which has nearly doubled in size in recent years, transforming the modest row house neighborhoods near the sprawling port complex. Churches held vigils for missing workers, and advocacy groups quickly raised $98,000 for victims' families. Some said they were not surprised that all the victims were immigrants, even though they account for less than 10% of the population of Maryland's largest city. One of the reasons Latinos were involved in this accident is because Latinos do the work that others do not want to do. We have to do it because we come here for a better life. We do not come to invade the country, said Lucia Islas, president of Comité Latino de Baltimore, a nonprofit group. Hispanic workers are more likely than other racial and ethnic groups to die on the job, according to the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics, with construction being a particularly deadly industry. Government and industry figures show that Hispanics are overrepresented in high-risk jobs. 51% of construction workers, 34% of slaughterhouse workers, and 61% of landscaping workers. The workers in the Key Bridge were employed by Bronner Builders, Inc., a local construction company that has done extensive work for the state and has been cited several times since 2018 for safety violations. Company officials have said they are devastated by the loss and declined comment when contacted by Reuters. Of course they're devastated. Where are you going to find such hard workers that work for such low money? Community leaders said many Hispanics in the city take low-paying work that provides scant benefits. The only choice is to work when you don't have the same salary that a citizen might earn, said Carlos Crespo, 53, a mechanic from Mexico. They don't value our Hispanic community. They see us as animals or think we live off the government. But that is not true. We pay our taxes too, he said. Crespo and others involved in the fundraising efforts said it was built on years of similar attempts to help provide a safety net for people who struggle to find affordable health care, adequate housing, or navigate services that are only provided in English. We go from one crisis to the other, said Susana Barrios, vice president of the Latino Racial Justice Circle. The disaster comes in the middle of the U.S. presidential election, in which immigration has once again been a top concern for voters. Republican, blah, 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 blah. Donald Trump candidate, Republican defendant J. Trump, has employed racist rhetoric against immigrants, referring to them as animals and not people on the campaign trail, and said he would dramatically ramp up deportation if re-elected on November 5th. Again, if you're a racist, that's how you think.
Yep.
He's kowtowing to his base. That's Trump's base. The base is the people that think they're better than you because, oh, look at my skin. Look at my place I was born. Look at the church I go to.
Look at my 15 golf courses I drive into the ground. I'm so much better than you.
Yeah. Right. Trump is so much better than the rest of us, isn't he? Because what? Wait, he's not better than actually anyone. Actually, he's worse than most people. And he's worse than like 80% of people. Maybe 90, maybe 95. Stop following Trump. He's an idiot. Baltimore, which has struggled with high crime and poverty rate, nearly double the national average, historically hasn't been home to a large Hispanic population, but the community has grown in recent years. Hispanics make up 7.8% of the city's population in 2020, up from 4.2% in 2010, according to U.S. Census figures. Nelson Amaya, a pastor at the Pentecostal church in the nearby suburb of Severn, said many Central American immigrants have moved from nearby Washington, D.C. suburbs in search of jobs and more affordable housing. Many Hispanic markets, restaurants, and other businesses have opened in recent years, he said. In more or less the last 5 years, the Hispanic population has grown a lot, he said. That's a big impact on the economy. The White House said Thursday existing immigration rules could allow for relatives of victims who are abroad to visit the United States. The relatives of victims who are abroad to visit the United States. In the meantime, some have struggled to come to grips with their loss. We continue to wait with faith, with hope that our brother's body can be found so we can begin the repatriation process, which is what interests us the most. Man, I can't talk. Said Martin Suazo, brother of one of the missing in Azacualpa, Honduras. We believe we should not forget the suffering of the families and the 4 victims whose bodies have been found. Get weekly news. Okay, that's an ad. That's it. This is reporter byline is at the bottom. Gabriela Borter. Additional reporting by Ted Hasson, Micah Rosenberg, Christina Cook, Andy Sullivan, and Marvin Valadares in Azacualpa, Honduras. All right, there you go. Trying to pronounce words.
Huge news for people out there, you know. In case you didn't already know, immigrants are treated like 4th-class citizens, like animals, as some people say. And it really is tragic. Because my favorite story is the story about the farmer who was like, I'm going to only hire citizens, right? I'm only hiring citizens. I put out only hiring citizens. You have to live in town or whatever. So he had, 20 people for the season, for the farming season. And at the end of the season, only 2 people made it. You know what happens when you hire immigrants? They all, for the most part, stay. And they get treated like shit, but they all stay. So, yeah, that's why there's immigration, at least in the U.S., because nobody wants to do those jobs. Nobody wants to go pick strawberries for 5 hours every day in this boiling heat. But all you get is shame for it, right? Doing manual labor is shameful. You should all just be sitting in your house, doing nothing, never using your muscles, because that is... And going to the gym, right? Go to the gym to use your muscles, but don't do any manual labor because that's shameful.
Yeah.
So
just build muscles that don't do anything.
I was called a wetback in school because my mother is Mexican or whatever, and I called myself Mexican and well, so I guess I asked for it by being proud of my heritage. But why is that a racial slur? I don't know. My back sweats because I'm working hard. I should feel bad and shameful about that. Fuck racists, obviously, and bigots and all those people who treat people less because they just want to feel better about themselves. Genuinely. They're the ones who are actually the shitty people. Okay, enough of the heavy stuff. Back to the clocks. We talked about the clocks at the beginning of March because that's when the US changed their clocks. And now the Europeans are going, why the hell are we still doing this? Because it's happening this weekend.
Right. Europeans have a choice too, dang it.
This is from the local...
mess.
Yeah, exactly. This is from the local by, I guess it's just Europe Street. This is who wrote the article. This weekend sees the changing of the clocks to summertime. But the EU had actually come with a plan to end this practice back in 2019. So what happened? On the morning of Sunday, March 31st, which is Easter Sunday, people across Europe will turn the clocks forward by 1 hour, moving into the summertime. I think this is a great idea to do it on Easter weekend because a lot of European countries have a longer Easter celebration. Like in America, it's 1 day. Here, it's 2 days. We do Easter, so you get more time to, your body to reprogram itself to the new clock. Doesn't mean it's right, though. This means that people will lose an hour of sleep on Sunday, although in good news Monday is a public holiday, so it gives you a little more time to get used to it. It marks the start of daylight savings time. But wasn't this supposed to change? What happened to the idea circulated in the European Union some years ago of no longer having seasonal time changes? In 2018, the European Commission launched a public consultation asking people what they thought of scrapping the time change. It was the most successful EU consultation ever. 4.6 people shared their thoughts on it, in some cases representing a significant portion of national populations, 3.79% for Germany and 2.9% for Austria. People overwhelmingly said they wanted to stop moving the clock back and forward every 6 months. In fact, 84% of respondents agreed with the proposal. Negative health impacts, including sleep disruption, the lack of energy savings, and an increase in road accidents were the most common reason to justify the idea. Yes, indeed, famously, when you go back from winter to summertime, there are a lot of people not only showing up late to work, but also driving half asleep because they've lost 1 hour of sleep. On that basis, in 2018, the Commission proposed legislation to end seasonal clock changes. This had to be approved by the European Parliament and by national governments represented at the EU Council. The European Parliament in 2019 supported the proposal by a large majority, suggesting time changes should be scrapped in 2021. But wait a minute, guys, it's 2024. What happened? But EU governments could not find an agreement. Should summertime or wintertime become the norm? How to coordinate the change among neighboring countries to avoid a patchwork of different time zones, and who would benefit the most? Brexit and the pandemic also got in the way, with the UK leaving the bloc and unlikely to follow new EU rules. Abolishing time changes would have left the Republic of Ireland and Northern Ireland in different time zones for half of the year. God damn it, it's always Brexit in the end, isn't it? Why does everything suck? Probably Brexit. Some countries' support for the idea was so flimsy. In Cyprus, Greece, and Malta, less than half of the participants in the consultation agreed. The last time the matter was discussed at the EU Council was in December 2019. Countries that called on the European Commission to produce an impact assessment of the proposal before being able to decide. Then, COVID-19 happened. God damn it, Brexit or COVID-19, they're always to blame. And the pandemic overshadowed the discussion. Who cares about clocks? People are dying out there. Time changes adopted by some 70 countries have a long history. Daylight savings time, DST, was introduced to several countries, including Germany, France, and the UK during World War I, which we did discuss at the beginning of the month. The arrangements were abandoned after the wars, but revived in the 1970s to deal with the oil crisis. Italy introduced daylight savings time in 1966, Greece in 1971, the UK and Ireland in 1972, Spain in 1974, and France in 1976. Okay, if this is so recent, right? If this is only 50 years ago, why the hell do we're acting like it's unchangeable now? Oh, what will we do? I mean, for 2 years, Spain and the UK and Ireland were on totally different time zones. Nobody cared, I guess. Didn't affect them back then. Now they're acting like the global economy will collapse if one country is in a different time zone. I guess it's because of computers. Because computers have to be synced. But then again, just sync them up. They can figure it out. There's on Discord, for example, you have the international time code, and you can just put that in. It'll automatically apply the time change for every single person who looks at that time code. So if I put in, my time, which is 13:48, it will say for you, what is it, 7:48 for you? Or I guess no, it's 8:48 for you.
Right now it's 8:48. Ouch.
Yeah, it'll automatically do that. So computers can do it. So what's the issue? What is the issue? Since 2001, an EU directive obliges EU member states to move the clock forward by 1 hour on the last Sunday of March and backward on the last Sunday of October. Earlier in the 1990s, countries were changing time on different dates. Kind of like what's happening now, the US at the beginning of March and the EU at the end of March. Does that cause global trade to collapse because of this 1 month difference? No. So who gives a... Why do we care? Excuses of not doing things. But today, does the system really ensure energy savings? Several assessments have found that the benefits are marginal. One study estimates energy savings at between 0.5% to 2.5%, also depending on the geography, climate, economic, and culture factors of the country. Like, for example, the UK is really saving energy because nobody turned on their heating during the winter and they all died of being cold. At least according to the article I read in January that we reported on. Generally, it seems that southern countries benefit the most, although gains are potentially diminished by technological advances such as energy-efficient devices. In other words, there is just not one factor to consider, and results achieved in some countries do not necessarily apply to others. What happens next? The debate on seasonal time changes was somewhat revived due to an energy crisis. In March 2022, the U.S. Senate passed a bill to make daylight savings time permanent from November 2023, although it still hasn't been passed in the House of Representatives. In the summer of 2022, reports in the Italian media suggested the session could resume in the EU too. However, a spokesperson for the EU Council recently told The Local there is nothing new on the agenda. The Council has not been formed in position on the Commission's proposal, he said in an email. However, in March 2024, the chair of the European Parliament Internal Market Committee, German Green MEP Anna Cavanzini, urged the EU member states to come to a common position on the matter at last. At the end of this legislation period, it is unfortunately clear that the abolition of the time change has become a non-starter in the Council, she said. In order to avoid further frustrations, the Council must fully untie the Gordian knot of member states' divergent opinions and take a position. This means we can finally make progress with ordinary legislation. Time between the European elections and the Commission's new work program would leave room enough for this summer. In this way, the EU can keep the long overdue promise to abolish the time change. It seems therefore likely that Europeans will change the time for a while. So I guess hopefully we'll have some news on this in the summer before the elections. Maybe they'll talk about it. Or maybe even after the elections, they're like, oh, let's do an easy thing. Time change. Passed. Go. And then, I don't know. It is a good question. What should you do? Stay on summertime, which is going to be really weird in the winter, because I think summertime in the winter, you basically have no sun at all. You wake up at the dark and you go home in the dark. But that's also how the winter is. It's dark most of the time. So... And then if you stay at the argument that we stay in wintertime and during the summer, right now, I think the sun comes up at like 5 a.m. and it goes down at like 8 p.m. So, and I think it's even later, right? Like 11 or something for some, depending where you live, right? The sun can be even later up. I think in Finland, it's up all summer, really. The sun is still up at 11 p.m. in Finland. So... Who knows?
The sun doesn't care, man.
It's up. Yeah, it's up to them to decide what they think is the best decision, I guess.
Blissfully unaware of any of this.
There are certain comments here which I find interesting, but it's mostly just people saying, "Actually, the truth is this happened." Some actuallys in the comments here. Back in 2019, when the EU had the leisure to debate unimportant things, this person has said. Yeah, that's true. We are in a war. There is a war happening. So it's a bit more important than, what about the clocks, guys? But then again, they changed the clocks during World War I, so maybe wartime is the time to abandon changing the clocks. Anyways, that's my story. On to yours.
Well, we can't control the sun.
Yet.
However, next week... not yet. Next week, early next week, is a total eclipse of the sun that's visible for much of North America. Not a lot of it, but it's I guess Austin, Texas is one of those places that's going to see it. And we're going to talk about how scientists will study it. This is from BBC. Jonathan O'Callaghan, only one reporter this time. Rockets, planes, balloons, and countless observers on the ground will be studying the North American total solar eclipse on 8 April in unprecedented detail. On Monday, 8 April, millions of people across America are set to witness one of the rarest of treats, a total solar eclipse. From the Pacific coast of Mazatlan in Mexico to the eastern coast of Canada's Newfoundland, the moon will perfectly block the sun and cast its shadow on the ground, turning day to near night. But it's not just the public set to be enthralled as scientists race to prepare experiments to observe this magnificent event. Every 18 months, a total solar eclipse occurs somewhere on Earth, a fortuitous quirk of the sun being 400 times further from the moon than the moon and 400 times larger, making the disk of the moon entirely cover the solar disk when it perfectly aligns between the Earth and the sun. This April eclipse is of particular note, however, because of the vast amount of populated land the eclipse will pass over, allowing many millions of people to watch. Locations of the path of totality will be plunged into total darkness for more than 4 minutes, but that is enough to perform some of the rarest science experiments with scientists hoping to observe the sun's atmosphere, its corona, as it dances around the moon. The reaction of wildlife to this celestial event, even launching rockets to observe how Earth's atmosphere reacts. An estimated 31 million people. Let me hear these pictures. I gotta find where I was reading. An estimated 31 million people will be in the path of the eclipse, double that of the last totally solar eclipse that crossed the U.S. on 21 August 2017. Totality is also longer this time around, from up to 2.5 minutes for most observers in 2017, because the moon was further away from Earth. The eclipse path will also be almost twice as broad, nearly 120 miles versus 70 miles, or as you want to do conversions, 200 kilometers versus 110 kilometers. Scientists are excited because this eclipse will pass over much more heavily populated land than the one which crossed the U.S. in 17. Adam Hartstone Ross from the New North Carolina State University of North Carolina. Yeah, that's right. It's called the NC State University. Okay, never mind. Adam Hartstone Ross from NC State University in North Carolina is leading a project to study how wildlife reacts to the eclipse. In 2017, he had teams of researchers stationed at different zoos in the path of totality to watch how animals behave. Some were baffled. A group of gorillas trooped inside for their evening meal as darkness fell, but were left empty-handed as daylight returned. The giraffes are my favorite, said Hartstone Ross. Somebody had reported wild giraffes in Africa started galloping during a total eclipse. I was really skeptical because giraffes are pretty passive animals. Despite my skepticism, some of them started running around. The most crazy behavior, said Hartstone Ross, was a group of Galapagos tortoises. As totality grew, they became more and more active. Right at the peak of totality, they started mating, which we cannot explain. We covered this kind of thing before. The Galapagos turtles mating. Yeah. Right at the peak of totality, they started mating, and we cannot explain. Maybe it was a one-time thing. We're going to be watching more tortoises this time around. Yeah, play that foreign background music. Well, the turtles, or maybe some Barry White. At Hartstone Ross will have researchers stationed at Fort Worth Zoo in Texas to monitor more than 20 species of animals during the eclipse, including gibbons, flamingos, orangutans, and of course, tortoises. He is also asking members of the public to perform their own animal behavior studies, either observing pets or nearby wildlife. Upload their observations online. I'll be videotaping my squirrels, I think. If I remember. All animals are of interest, from dogs to farm animals. There's very little information about what farm animals do, said Hartstone. Are cows going to come towards the barn during totality? Shouldn't roosters crow sometime during an eclipse? Animals react to change in light sometimes very strongly. Trey Winter, that's just somebody's name. Hartstone Ross isn't the only person who will be studying how animals behave during eclipse. Trey Winter and at the Advanced Research Inclusion of STEAM Accessibility Lab in Massachusetts will lead NASA's Eclipse Soundscapes projects, which will use small phone-sized devices equipped with microphones called audio moths to listen to the sounds of nearby animals. Hundreds of volunteers will place devices along the path of totality, allowing Winter and his team to hear how different animals react to both the drop in light during totality and the associated drop of temperature of some 10 degrees Fahrenheit, which is 5.5 degrees Celsius. Animals react to the change in light, sometimes very strongly, and also temperature changes. It's a very multi-sensory experience. A range of animals will be studied, such as crickets and even humans. Even humans? I'm looking forward to listening to the lack of humans experiencing the eclipse for the first time and the sounds of excitement they make. That's something Heartstone Ross is interested in too. The strangest wild animal behavior we observed in 2017 was people around us. People started hooting and hollering or lying down on the concrete. Not everyone studying the eclipse will actually go to witnesses. As the moon crosses the sun, Arao Barajata at Embry-Riddle Aeronautical University in Florida will be hundreds of kilometers from the totality at NASA's Wallops Flight Facility in Virginia. I know where that is. He will be busy extraordinarily unique experiment called atmospheric perturbations around the eclipse path, launching a 18-meter tall, 59 feet rockets called sounding rockets into the atmosphere at the time of the eclipse to monitor the changes in the planet's atmosphere. The professional side of me is very excited. The personal side of me is slightly sad to be missing out on the totality. An estimated 31 million people will be in path of the eclipse. The scientific returns in each rocket will launch up to an altitude of about 420 kilometers before falling back to Earth. One rocket will be launched 45 minutes before the peak of the eclipse, one during, one 45 minutes after. Instruments on board will measure charged particles and electrical and magnetic fields in the ionosphere, a region of Earth's atmosphere that extends from 100 kilometers to 1,000 kilometers above the Earth's surface, and how that changes in response to the eclipse. Fluctuations in the ionosphere outside of the eclipse can affect satellite communications, so an eclipse gives a rare opportunity to study these changes in greater detail. The story goes on a little bit longer, but we have a limited amount of time in this show, and I had a story about the Fed raising rates, lowering interest rates. Fed's balancing act could see June rate cut in pay even with sticky inflation. This is from Howard Schneider of Reuters. Federal Reserve Jerome Powell, Chair Jerome Powell, he's not a chair, he's a chairperson, says the central bank is not growing more tolerant of higher inflation, even though the latest policymaker projections raised the inflation outlook for the year without triggering a tougher monetary policy response. But former Fed officials and others say analysts see Powell's nevertheless approaching a difficult moment trying to reconcile competing economic risks. A divided group of Fed policymakers and a public now expecting interest rate cuts to start in June. Upcoming data may well support a June rate reduction if inflation declines convincingly towards Fed's 2% target between now and then, resuming a trend that encouraged policymakers last year to cap federal funds rate at the current 5.25 to 5.5% and lay the groundwork for easing to begin this year. Others see a slowing economy and weakening job growth on the horizon, pushing the Fed to cut in order to support the labor market. Even if the inflation proves more persistent than expected in coming weeks, the economy remains strong. The Fed could still proceed with a June rate cut by framing it as a potentially one-off adjustment rather than a locked-in beginning of a series of reductions. Former Fed Vice Chair Richard Clarida, now a global economic advisor to the bond giant PIMCO, wrote this week in assessing the pivotal moment central banks face in their policy communications. The upfront justification of rate cuts expected to start this summer, Claudia said, would be that policymakers are simply keeping rates in step with the decline in inflation seen since last year and could cut further as long as inflation continues to fall. But if inflation does not follow the forecast and becomes entrenched at a plausible 2.5%, the central banks would likely pause their rate cut cycles. Clarity wrote, and depending on their belief that by keeping policy restrictive long enough, they can credibly forecast inflation returning eventually to the 2% target. An initial cut, explained with explained with language that tilts towards suspending further reductions if inflation does not behave as expected, would hedge the risk facing both sides of the Fed's employment and inflation goals and assuage the concerns of Fed officials worried most about damaging the current expansion, as well as those worried most about embedded inflation. A lot of words saying, we want to cut rates to stimulate the economy, but we're afraid we're going to cause inflation. But of course, they're assuming that they're causing the inflation to begin with. But I don't think this is going to affect inflation as much as they think it will, because when you cut rates, you also cut everybody's mortgage rates. You stimulate buying homes. You stimulate people borrowing. You stimulate people spending. That causes inflation, but it also causes job growth. And it also, it doesn't make us sitting here going, well, at least inflation's low. Let's make sure the rates stay high so we cause no economic growth. That's not good either. So there's your inflation, in my opinion on it, that they need to cut rates, not worrying about inflation, but worried about maybe we're going to stagnate the economy a little bit too much. And there you go. Back to you and your culture news.
Economics update. Okay, in culture news, we have a interesting story about John Boyega, who is famously the Black Stormtrooper from the Star Wars films and other things. He's done other things, but that's what he got his big kind of spotlight in. But this is about his life-changing friendship with Damilola Taylor, from The Guardian by Emily Dugan. The actor John Boyega has spoken for the first time of the life-changing impact of his friendship with Damilola Taylor and the way his sudden death spurred him and others to aim further. Boyega, 32, best known for his work in the Star Wars franchise, was school friends with Damilola growing up in southeast London. Damilola was 10 when he was stabbed in the leg with a broken bottle walking home from computer class in Peckham in November 2000. Boyega was 8 at the time, and he and his sister Grace were among the last people to see Damilola. He said he had previously kept his memories about his friend private, but was motivated to speak after the death of Damilola's father, Richard Taylor, earlier this week. I just think from the hours we left him in Peckham to the hours from when I went home and the police were at our door was definitely life-changing for me, Boyega told John Wilson on BBC Radio 4's Last Word. To be involved in that way, even in passing, makes you feel like you're inches away from something so tragic, he said, adding that he wanted to keep the memory of Damilola Taylor alive because he was a funny, very energetic guy that everybody really, really loved in the community. Boyega said Damilola's murder had a huge impact on him and others and made them more determined to succeed. The effect of this guy, unfortunately, and obviously, some of it's being through tragedy, but the effect of his personality going through something like that has been a really positive one to everybody that grew up in the community to aim further and to not see any limits. And that's exactly what I did. Damilola had moved to London from Nigeria a few months before he was killed, but Boyega said in that time the 10-year-old had made a big impression. I just remembered Damilola Taylor with a silver jacket, running through the playground of Oliver Goldsmith's primary school, already sweating as if he had just run a marathon at near enough 9 a.m. in the morning, drinking from water fountains, flirting with my bloody sister, and just being around us and cracking jokes and being flamboyant and charismatic. And I just remember him being a big personality. Boyega, whose family were also of Yoruba descent, said people had felt protective of Damilola having newly arrived in the country. It was such a short time, but everyone knew he was the new kid in school and came straight from Nigeria, so there was something about the energy that in the Nigerian community, especially the Yoruba community is like, protect this guy and make sure he's good, that's your brother. Boyega said he believed Damilola would have gone on to do some very great things, and whatever he chosen the field would be, he'd definitely still be funny. So there's your kind of heartwarming story about a murder that helped bring the London community together, the Nigerian London community together. And that's why Boyega is now, I guess, attributes success to this 10-year-old kid that, showed him life isn't all too bad and we need to strive forward to the top. But that's my really short story there. Now, compared to the economics news, which I think went for 10 minutes.
I'm sorry. Well, all right. I wasn't. The economic news was very short. I was talking about the eclipse.
Oh, okay. You keep on doing that, where you add 2 stories to your already existing 2 stories. But there it is. I guess on to this day in history.
No, actually, what I did was I made this story longer because I sent you a video.
Yeah.
I can give you time to edit. And it was just, I basically did 2 short stories and cut them in half. Well, I took 2 longer stories and cut them in half. But I was only on the economic story for maybe a minute. This day in history, 1461, Edward IV defeated Henry VI for the throne of England in the bloodiest battle of the New York-Lancaster conflict, known as the War of the Roses. They make it sound like those 2 guys are the only 2 fighting. Like, yeah, they had thumb wrestling or arm wrestling contest. That's what happened. No, it was a bunch of people. It says the bloodiest battle of the York-Lancaster conflict. That means a lot of other people died. So these people could be in power. Oh, yay. War, isn't it wonderful? 1790, John Tyler on this day was born. He was the 10th president of the United States. In 1807, William Olbers was a German astronomer, discovered a minor planet called Vesta, the brightest asteroid in the sky. Minor planet? How did I feel about that? How would you feel if you were called a minor planet? I know I wouldn't be too excited. Okay, in 1867, Cy Young was born. American baseball pitcher Cy Young, who set a major league record for most wins at 511, was born. And curiously, he never won the Cy Young Award. I wonder why.
Wow, what the hell?
Oh, that's right. His name. That's like Vince Lombardi. Never won the Lombardi Trophy. And, of course, Lou Gehrig died of Lou Gehrig's disease. What a coincidence. 1917, Man o' War, perhaps the most famous American thoroughbred in the 20th century of horse racing, was foaled, not born. Man o' War was foaled. F-O-A-L-D. I can't spell now. F-O-A-L-E-D, foaled. That's what they call it when a baby horse comes out. 1918, retail magnate Sam Walton was born. Of course, he started Walmart, which there's one of those in every town in America, apparently, just at this point. Other probably being superseded by the Dollar General's franchise, which probably has higher prices. Anyway, 1943, British conservative politician John Major was born. He was the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom from 90 to 97. 1951, the musical The King and I debuted on Broadway. The Rodgers and Hammerstein musical starred Yul Brynner and made him a star. The most famous bald man in America at the time. 1951, Julius and Ethel Rosenberg were found guilty of espionage and sentenced to death for turning over U.S. military secrets to the Soviet Union. And of course, it's not even 1/10 of what Donald Trump is accused of doing. Not even, probably even 1/100th of what Donald Trump is accused of doing. Julius and Ethel Rosenberg were executed for it. A mere pittance of what this guy's done. 1961, the 23rd Amendment was certified, allowing the residents of Washington, D.C. to vote in presidential elections. That's right. Up until 1961, if you lived in Washington, D.C., you did not get to vote for president. Isn't that weird? 1973, American troops evacuated Saigon as the United States ended its involvement in the Vietnam War. In 1974, farmers drilling a well near Xi'an, China, found a subterranean chamber that led to the discovery of the Terracotta Army. 8,000 life-size terracotta soldiers and horses in the tomb of Emperor Qin Shi Huang. And buried underground, 8,000 soldiers made of dirt. 1999, Canadian ice hockey player Wayne Gretzky retired, considered by many to be the greatest player in the history of the NHL, scored the final goal of his career, retired at the end of the season. Big day in his life, I guess. 2019, French filmmaker Agnes Varda, whose groundbreaking movies were hugely influential in the New Wave movement, died at the age of 90. And that time capsule takes us back to this day in 2002, the fourth suicide bombing at the past 2 weeks at Ayat Air Akras, a Palestinian high school student, detonates herself in the entrance to a grocery store in Jerusalem, killing 2 Israelis, in addition to herself, and wounding at least 30. Well, I'm sure that accomplished a hell of a lot. We remembered it for some reason. Yeah, just another stupid terrorist attack, if you ask me. Why are we remembering it? That's what they want. They want to be remembered. Our featured event in 1867, the Dominion of Canada was created. On this day in 1867, with the British North America Act, the British colonies of Nova Scotia, New Brunswick, and Canada were united as the Dominion of Canada. Oh yeah. And the province of Canada was separated into Quebec and Ontario. Our featured biography, Pearl Bailey's birthday today. Pearl Bailey, born American singer and entertainer, born March 29th, 1918 in Newport News, Virginia, died at the age of 72, August 17th, 1990 in Philadelphia. Other birthdays today, Lavrenta Beria, Soviet government official, born in 1899. We did Sam Walton. We did John Major. It's Joe Nesbo's birthday, Norwegian writer and musician. And tennis player Jennifer Capriati's birthday. She was born in 1976. And she turns, what does that make her now? 48. She's 48 today, Jennifer Capriati. Did a little math there. And what day is it today? It is National Mom and Pop Business Owners today. Isn't that interesting that occurs on Sam Walton's birthday? Wow. What are the odds? I think they're 365 by golly. And National Mom and Pop Businesses, of course, legendarily put out of business by Walmart nationwide. If you go to any mom and pop store in any town, they buy all their stuff at Walmart because it's cheaper and they can sell it. You know, that's how low the price. They just undercut their prices. You said, might as well retire now, mom and pop. And you go to any town, you see these stores that are all boarded up, and I've been out of business for 30 years. Progress. National Lemon Chiffon Cake Day and National Vietnam War Veterans Day. And also National Pita Day, which you mentioned. It's also Good Friday, which is a Christian holiday commemorating the death of Jesus. So I don't know why it's good. As a child, I still haven't got that question answered. I still don't have an answer. Why it's a Good Friday when you get nailed to a cross? I have no idea. It sounds like the shittiest day you ever had. National Nevada Day is today also. So those are the days. So don't get nailed to a cross in Nevada if you can avoid it. Back to you. Oh wait, those are our days for today, March 29th, 2024, and before coffee. And don't get nailed to a cross.
Don't get nailed to a cross.
It's not good. Believe me or not.
It's not recommended.
Good to be nailed to a cross. In spite of why they decided it was a good thing, I have no idea. I'm still confused about the whole thing.
This has been Allison here. I hope if you celebrate, you have a good Easter weekend, I guess, and a good Friday. And then
right.
We will see you on Monday for another Mucking Fun Day where I will have now lost an hour of sleep. And we'll be back to our normally timed schedule because everything will be 6 hours apart again instead of 5 hours apart like it has been for this whole month. Have a good one. Take care out there. Don't forget to subscribe if you're not already, because we're trying to get to 300 subscribers, and right now we're at 74. So keep subscribing out there, share with your friends, and
the chair declares the House in recess, subject to the call of the chair.
Be sure to hit the like, subscribe, and notify buttons, and follow our other channels, Toxic Alley, History of Gravy, and Scratchy Old Records.